What should you learn? What skills do you need? What programming languages are needed to build a website? Well, let's find out. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, SQL are some of the most common languages that are used to make a website. But they are not just that. There are so many more, and it can literally be overwhelming for a beginner to absorb. So we only mention those common ones. We don't want to scare aspiring web developers on a beginner stage. Good news is that you don't necessarily have to learn them all. Some languages, especially those under the back-end category, generally do the same thing. You, as a beginner, can pick a specific road or languages you want to take. The field of website development is huge. There are many skills and languages a web developer can learn throughout their entire career. Despite having so many aspects, the web development spectrum all comes down to the two main pillars, front end and back end. To describe briefly, front end generally deals with what a website visitor sees, like a user interface. Hence, it's called front. The back end, on the other hand, generally deals with the logic happening behind the scenes, like querying a database. Hence, it's called back. At a minimum, you can make a fully functional website just by learning the front end side of the web development spectrum. What front end languages, technologies I need to learn in order to make a website? The core languages of the front end side are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But only one of them is always required to create a website, and that is HTML, also known as Hypertext Markup Language. Every website you see on the internet, no matter how simple or sophisticated they may look, all comes down to HTML. Even though CSS and JavaScript are often used together with HTML, they are not a requirement. That said, the absolute minimum skill you need to make a functional website is nothing more than plain HTML. That's right, no CSS or JavaScript needed. And now let's emphasize on the word functional. By functional, we mean literally just being able to click around, read, or view the contents of a web page without being too concerned about the design aspect or aesthetics. That said, using just plain HTML on a website may not necessarily mean it's going to look stylish. Well, that's where CSS comes in. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Its meaning alone should give you a hint of what it does. It quite literally styles your webpage. See, if a website is a car, HTML will be the car's frame and body, while CSS will be the car's look, design, or paint job. That's all there is to it, really. Nothing more. Now where does JavaScript, often called JS, come into the picture? Using just HTML and CSS is already good. You can have a perfectly looking website with just those two. Most informational websites you see are probably just using HTML and CSS on their front end with little to no JavaScript. So when to use it? Oftentimes, JavaScript is used for interactivity in the user interface. Say you want to send a pop-up alert on a click of a button, or want an animated slideshow of pictures. You need JavaScript for that. On a side note, JavaScript is probably the most unique of all web-related languages, as it can be used in both front-end and back-end. But don't be confused with that though. For now, just stick with JavaScript in the front-end realm. Do you need HTML to make a website? Is HTML and CSS enough to create a website? If we're only talking about the front-end side of web development, at a minimum, you need HTML to make a website. Then you need CSS to make it stylish. Then you might need JavaScript, only if you want some interactivity. In practice though, HTML and CSS is always going to be what you'll be using, as you don't really want a plain looking HTML only site. But if you're so inclined, nothing is stopping you from using plain HTML alone. It's still considered a valid website. In summary, HTML alone, or a combination of both HTML and CSS, is enough to build a website. Do you have questions about the video? Leave a comment, or if you haven't already, leave a like and subscribe. Thanks, and see you in the next videos.